Lily's Dishes Are Delicious presents a dish that some know it as Ghiveci, or Leczo, or Menemen, or Shakshuka, or Djuvec. But what this is, it's a vegetable stew with eggs. Let's go over the ingredients first. What we need is half a cup of oil, 5 eggs, 3 bell peppers, and I like to use different colors just to make the dish look more prettier, 6 tomatoes, 2 onions, 2 tablespoons of salt, and of course, utensils and dishes. While the oil is heating up, I'm gonna get busy cutting the vegetables. And while I'm cutting the vegetables, I'm going to tell you a story about this dish. A few years back, I went to Turkey, and before I go anywhere, I like to do some research about the place. So one thing that came high on the list of things to do, it was to eat menemen, which was advertised as a breakfast dish made with vegetables and eggs. So when I got there, I asked the hotel manager, where can I go and have this beautiful breakfast dish? And he said, don't go out and eat it. I can have the cook make it for you tomorrow morning for breakfast. And I agreed. So the next day morning, I go down for breakfast, and here is the cook. She brought me on this platter, menemen, the dish that I asked for. I thanked her, I gave her a nice tip, and then I start looking at the food to examine this awesome dish, this famous dish, just to find out that I make the exact same dish myself at home. I grew up with it actually, except what threw me off is we eat this dish normally for lunch or dinner, we don't eat it for breakfast. And of course, I know it under a different name. Which brings me to the next subject. This dish happened to be a very popular dish in many cultures. And once you'll try it, you'll understand why. This dish is super easy to make, does not require many ingredients. If you happen to be a vegetarian, just skip the eggs and you have yourself a dish. You can eat this dish for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can eat it with bread or as a side dish, whichever way you want. Now that I got carried away with talking, let me come back and talk about how to make this dish. As you saw me, I placed the onion to be sautéed. And while the onion is sautéing, I'm going to cut the vegetables. Whenever I cook, I like to do things in a certain sequence to maximize the time. Because I know the onion will take a while to sauté, that will be a perfect time for me to cut the vegetables, rather than cutting them ahead of time and spend more time in the kitchen. So onion is sautéing here, and I have to sauté it until it turns translucent in color. At this stage, I'm going to put half of the salt that I have here, and I like to use Himalayan salt, but you can use any salt you want. I have 2 tablespoons of salt here, but I'm going to use only half of it, and then as it cooks, I'm going to try towards the end and see if I need more. And in this case, by the time I was done with it, I ended up putting both tablespoons. So as you can see, while I'm cutting the vegetables, I'm not forgetting about the onion. So I keep going back, mix it to make sure it doesn't burn, and then I go back to cutting the vegetables. And like I said, maximize the time. When you're cutting the tomatoes, make sure don't use that stem part. You want to get rid of that. So the next thing that will go into the pot is the bell pepper. It takes a lot longer for the bell pepper to cook than for the tomatoes. So that's my sequence. I put the onion first, caramelize the onion, add the bell pepper, saute it for a while for the bell pepper to soften, and then add the tomatoes. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is that I use 1:1:2 ratio, which means I'm using equal amounts of onion and bell pepper and double the amount of tomatoes. Looks like my onion is ready. As you can see, the color has changed. It's more translucent and a little bit caramelized looking. At this stage, it's perfect time to add the bell peppers. And then, of course, continue cooking it. And once you add the bell peppers, you will have to mix it a little bit more often than before, than with the onions only, because the bell peppers are not that watery, so they tend to get burned a little bit faster. So mix it frequently, and when you see the water evaporated, that the water has receded there, then it's perfect time to add tomatoes, as it is right now. So let me give it a good mix before I put the tomatoes in. Looks as if I have too many tomatoes here, as if my casserole dish is not big enough for all the vegetables that I have. But in a matter of a couple of minutes, you will notice how the volume will decrease. My tomatoes are going to decrease there. They will release a lot of water initially, as you can see right now. But by the time you're done cooking this dish, all that water will recede. And actually, that is one sign that tells you that your meal is pretty much ready when you will notice that it becomes thicker and less water. When you run your spatula on the bottom of that casserole dish and you see the bottom of the casserole as you pull your spatula through the vegetables, that actually it's a clear sign that you're close to the end. Looks like my vegetable stew has thickened up, and now it's time to put the eggs inside. And like I told you, see, I'm running the spatula through it, and you can see the bottom of the casserole dish. It's perfect time to put the eggs inside. I'm trying to create a little nest there for the egg. So let's see, I have to move the stew a little bit and then place the eggs inside and then continue to cook it until the eggs are cooked. And now it's time to decide which way you want to finish this dish. I prefer to have larger pieces of eggs in my stew, but other people prefer to have smaller egg pieces. So if you like to have smaller pieces, then you have to start mixing those eggs pretty quickly the moment you put them in. You have to break them right away. But if you like larger pieces like I do, then just be patient, allow it to cook like this a little bit, and maybe take a little bit of the stew and cover up those eggs with the stew. This way they cook on every side, and towards the end start breaking them. This thing smells so good. I'm being questioned. What are you cooking? What smells so good? How much longer until it's done? Well, soon everybody gets to enjoy it. And my dish is done, ready to be served. I prefer to eat this dish with bread, so I'm going to take a bread roll and put a generous amount into that bread roll and enjoy it like that. Other family members prefer to eat it without any bread, just as a side dish. And any way you like it, it's delicious no matter what. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you make it, and bon appetit!